Hi there, I'm Imelda. At my sister's wedding, my parents called me up like I was part of a tribute, then tried to shame me into giving her my $840,000 beach house in front of everyone. When I said no, my own father hit me with a glass. That should have been the worst part. But it wasn't. Because the deeper truth? They'd been planning it for months, faking illnesses, stealing documents, forging my name on legal deeds. And when I refused to be silent, they tried to evict me from a house I paid for myself. So I did what they never expected. I sold their home instead. I arrived at the venue in Fort Lauderdale just before sunset. The spring air was heavy with gardenia and smoked cedar, and the lights draped over the courtyard flickered like the whole place had been waiting for someone, just not me. The valet barely glanced at my car, then rushed to greet a BMW behind me. I straightened my dress and headed toward the welcome table. A young man in a sleek black vest scanned a tablet. Name? Imelda Furman. He frowned, scrolled, then turned the screen toward me. There it was, a chart that looked like it had been finalized by a publicist. Under the Reynolds-Kate family block, there was Tamsin and Clyde in bold font, followed by extended relatives. At the bottom, in gray italics, guest of family +1. I'm the sister, I said, his mouth opened slightly. I can make a name tag if... It's fine. I pinned the generic badge over my heart. The adhesive tugged at my dress as if even fabric was resisting my presence. Inside, chandeliers dripped from the ceiling like frozen fire. Jazz played. Guests in designer suits swirled champagne flutes, laughter rising in bubbles I wasn't invited into. I found my seat, table 23, near the service entrance. I wasn't offended, I was prepared. A server passed by and asked, "Are you with catering?" I turned to face her. "No, just invisible." She blinked and moved on. I let my hands rest on the place setting, a drooping napkin folded into a swan that had given up mid-flight. That was the moment it hit me. This wasn't neglect, it was design. 3 weeks ago, Mom had called saying she'd had a minor stroke. I flew down, panicked. She acted frail, asked me to help her log into my laptop, just to check Facebook. I'd left the room for 5 minutes. When I returned, the browser history had been wiped. I told myself I was overthinking. Tonight made it clear. I wasn't. The house, the tension, the off-balance seating chart, it all aligned. I wasn't being forgotten. I was being deleted. The lights dimmed. A microphone screeched to life. I took a breath, thinking the tributes were about to begin. Then I heard it. And now, a special tribute. Please welcome Imelda Furman. I didn't move, because I hadn't written anything, because I wasn't supposed to be part of this story, because I knew. I was walking into something I hadn't agreed to. Applause flickered across the ballroom like a wave unsure of its destination. I stood slowly, unsure whether I was walking into a spotlight or a trap. Roxanne gave a polished nod from the front table, one hand lightly lifting her champagne flute. Tamsin smiled, but there was tension in the way her fingers gripped Clyde's arm. And Clyde? He couldn't even meet my eyes. I made my way to the stage with all the certainty of a woman being called into an ambush she couldn't yet define. A slideshow began to roll behind me. Childhood photos, Tamsin in ballet, Tamsin graduating, Tamsin on a trip to Barcelona. Voiceover followed. Roxanne's well-practiced tone. Tamsin has always been the light of our lives. Then Vernon. She's the anchor of our family. The kind of daughter any parent would be proud to claim. My name never surfaced. Even in group photos I remembered being in, I was cropped out or absent altogether. I stood still, smiling like a statue, holding back the heat building behind my eyes. Then Roxanne joined me on stage, her hand brushing my shoulder in that rehearsed way that looked tender but felt like pressure. She laughed into the mic. And what better way to celebrate this love than with a gift straight from the heart? I blinked, unsure what was coming next. Roxanne turned to the crowd. Imelda has something very special for the newlyweds. She's gifting them her beach house in Lauderdale by the sea. Gasps, a few surprised claps. Clyde finally looked at me, lips parted. Tamsin smiled wider, teeth flashing like knives. I stepped to the mic. This wasn't agreed on. The room stiffened. You could feel it shift. The moment where something posed as a joke turned into a public spectacle. Roxanne's smile barely faltered. "Oh, sweetie, don't make a scene. It's just a house." Vernon stood at the front table, face flushed. "You're embarrassing the family, Imelda. That's not how we raised you." He picked up a champagne flute, then, with a casual flick of his wrist, hurled it toward me. Glass struck just above my temple, not hard enough to knock me out, but sharp enough to draw blood and freeze the room in place. Phones went up. A woman near the side whispered, "Is she bleeding?" No one moved. I stood, dabbing the side of my head with the cloth napkin I'd folded just an hour ago. The stain spread in red. Tamsin stayed seated. Clyde tugged at his cuff, then glanced at the server like he needed a refill. I walked off the stage, every step punctuated by the click of my heels and the tightening pulse in my skull. A distant cousin I barely knew leaned in as I passed and muttered, "That was out of line." But no one followed me out. I stepped into the night alone. The breeze off the ocean bit at the side of my face, but I didn't cry. I pulled out my phone, called a rideshare, and sat on the curb. As I reached into my purse for my house key, I paused. It was gone. Juno didn't ask questions when I showed up at her door near midnight, still in my dress, dried blood crusting my hairline. She just opened the guest room, handed me a clean towel, and said, "Lock the door if you need to." I sat on the edge of the bed for an hour, not moving, not crying, just listening to the hum of her fridge and the soft groan of pipes behind the wall. My purse sat open beside me, lip balm, loose receipts, a protein bar I never finished. But the key? Gone. My fingers curled into the bedsheet. This wasn't just an outburst. That gift suggestion? The missing key? It all pointed to planning, premeditation. They weren't hoping I'd give the house. They were counting on taking it. 3 months back, at brunch after Clyde's promotion party, Tamsin had pulled me aside while Mom was distracted with mimosas. "You know," she'd said, placing a manicured hand on my wrist, "if I ever told Dad about that little app deal in 2018, he might wonder how clean your taxes are." I laughed it off, thought she was being petty. A week later, Clyde texted, "Hey, could you send me a digital copy of the beach house deed? Just want to show a realtor for wedding venue ideas?" I forwarded it without thinking. Trust, it turns out, makes a great disguise for a knife. Back in Juno's room, I opened my laptop and pulled up my banking portal. No strange withdrawals. Yet. Then I checked my email. There it was. Subject: Property Inspection Confirmation from Suncrest Realty Body. Per your co-owner, Vernon Cate's request, we're confirming your property inspection for tomorrow at 11 a.m. at your Lauderdale property. I froze. I never added Vernon as a co-owner. I bought that house solo after my last promotion. I paid every cent of the mortgage, alone, and yet, there his name was, typed cleanly into the paperwork. That was the moment the fog lifted. This wasn't an isolated act of cruelty, it was a campaign, and I'd slept through most of it. They thought I'd stay quiet, like always. They thought shame would paralyze me. They were wrong. By 10 a.m., I was standing on the sun-bleached porch of my beach house, keys jangling in my fist, waiting for the locksmith to finish his assessment. The salt air didn't feel like relief anymore. It felt like warning. He pointed near the door handle. "These scratches are fresh. See that? Whoever had a key didn't quite know how to use it." "Someone tried to get in," I muttered. He gave a short nod. "Not a break-in. A bad copy or an unfamiliar hand." I thanked him, handed him a tip, and waited until his truck turned the corner. Then I stepped inside, shut the door behind me, and locked it twice. The place looked untouched, but now, even that felt like a trick. I called Suncrest Realty. "Hi, this is Imelda Furman," I said. "I received a confirmation about a home inspection today. The name Vernon Cate is listed as co-owner." "Right," the agent chirped. "That came through 2 weeks ago. The co-signature was attached digitally. You approved that via DocuSign, yes?" "No," I said flatly. "I never signed anything, and Vernon Cate is not on my deed." There was silence on the other end. "Oh," she said finally. "Well, we do have a form with both names and signatures. Would you like me to forward it?" "Absolutely." Within 5 minutes, the forged document was sitting in my inbox. It was my full legal name, my fake signature. their real plan. Not even an hour later, a second email landed from an anonymous address. They've been planning this since October. You weren't supposed to find out. I read it 3 times, my pulse a steady drumbeat in my ears. October. 8 months of strategy, deceit, and soft coercion masked as small talk. My stomach turned. I opened my contacts and messaged Nathaniel, a colleague I trusted in corporate law. His response came within 10 minutes. This is serious. I don't handle family estate manipulation, but I'll connect you with Devlin Choate. He's your guy. I wrote down the name and number, fingers trembling, but not from fear, from readiness. I hadn't felt this in years. Clarity, control. I started building a timeline. Emails from Clyde asking for financial info. Tamsin's passive-aggressive brunch threats. Screenshots, bank statements, legal docs. Everything was evidence now. I even pulled her old sponsorship deals from LinkedIn to verify inconsistencies. Then I opened the family group chat. Typed a single sentence. You have 72 hours to undo what you've done. After that, I go public. I hit send, sat back, waited. 30 minutes passed. Then came the notification. You have been removed from the group. Not a word, not a call. I stared at the notification for a full minute. Removed. Just like that. No explanation, no attempt at grace or even guilt, just deletion. Again. I set the phone down on the kitchen counter and opened my laptop. It was time to stop reacting and start building. I created a folder. Asset Defense Imelda Furman. Inside it, I saved every screenshot, bank transfer, deed scan, message, and legal document I could find. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was preparation. An hour into cataloging, I logged into the old shared family banking platform. I used to monitor it when Mom had back surgery, paid bills, helped manage their retirement drawdown. The login failed. I tried again. Access denied. Contact account administrator. I blinked, then leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. So they'd locked me out, even from the account I once used to bail them out of a foreclosure scare in 2016. This wasn't just about a beach house anymore. This was scorched earth. I picked up my phone and called the number Nathaniel had given me. Devlin Choate answered after 2 rings. His voice was calm, clipped, serious. I read the files your contacts sent, he said. Miss Furman, what you're describing isn't just emotional abuse, it's financial entrapment, and it's actionable. For the first time in days, I exhaled without shaking. Then let's move, I said, because they already have. We scheduled a formal consultation for Friday morning. That afternoon, I mailed certified letters to both Vernon and Roxanne. I wrote them myself, every word purposeful and sharp. You have misrepresented private property. All current and future actions involving 917 Ocean Ridge will be reviewed through legal channels. Then I called the real estate office and froze the listing. Temporarily, but visibly. I didn't ask for a reply. I didn't want their version of one. Later that night, I scrolled through old text threads, stopping at one where Tamsin had sent me a photo of the family cabin, and wrote, I miss when we all got along. I laughed, quiet, bitter. That message was 2 weeks before her fiancé cornered me at brunch, asking if I had any deeds lying around he could glance over for venue ideas. Now it made sense. This wasn't a breakdown, it was a blueprint. Just after 9 p.m., Clyde texted me. You didn't have to go this far. We can still fix this. I stared at the screen, then typed back. Fix what? The theft or the assault? I didn't wait for a reply, but the next buzz came fast, and with something new. An anonymous number, a video link. At first I thought it was spam, but curiosity won. The footage loaded quickly, grainy night vision, time-stamped 2 nights ago. A figure outside my condo mailbox, pulling envelopes out, one by one, glancing over their shoulder. Tamsin, wearing a hoodie too small and a scowl too familiar. I hit pause and leaned back, letting the silence take shape. That grainy footage was proof, not of a crime maybe, but of intent. And sometimes that's worse. I forwarded the clip to Devlin with a brief note. Suspected trespassing, mailbox tampering. He called within minutes. We'll need a motion sensor camera and file for a temporary protection order. This is escalating. Escalating? No. It had already escalated. This was war now. Later that afternoon, my phone buzzed again. A friend from grad school had sent a link. This you? I tapped the screen. It was a video montage, stitched together from my toast at Tamsin's wedding, distorted to make me sound entitled, jealous, emotionally unstable. Choppy clips, all out of context. Overlaid text, raised with love, betrayed us anyway. The comment section was a mess. I knew she was the dramatic one. She always looked like trouble. And one from a former colleague. Wait, is this the same Imelda who ran that nonprofit program in Miami? Shame burned through me, but not for long. This wasn't embarrassment, it was defamation. I opened my laptop and dragged files into a Dropbox folder I'd already titled Receipts. There went the scanned deed, the bank transfers, screenshots of Clyde requesting venue info, audio from Mom begging me to help with the mortgage again just this one time. I posted the link with a single caption. This is what betrayal actually looks like. Then I turned off my phone. By morning, the response had shifted. A small wave of support began trickling in. Advocacy accounts reshared my post under hashtags like #FamilyGaslighting and #FinancialAbuse-is-real. I even saw someone I didn't know write, "She's not crazy, she's cornered." Tamsin tried to walk it back. Her comment, "I didn't know it would go this far," lasted barely 3 hours before it vanished, but screenshots live forever. Meanwhile, Devlin filed an emergency injunction against Vernon and began the paperwork to dispute the forged co-ownership. I packed slowly, box by box, not out of panic, but reclamation. This wasn't about leaving, it was about clearing space for what came next. That afternoon, my phone dinged again. Motion filed, eviction order, property, Boca Raton. They were trying to evict me from my own house. I looked at the screen and laughed. The next morning, I poured coffee just in time to hear a knock echo across the front porch of my parents' Boca Raton home. Except it wasn't my knock. It was the sheriff's, not a metaphor. A real uniformed officer hand-delivering the eviction papers I'd filed days ago. I wasn't there to see it, but Devlin had requested the deputy wear a body cam, just in case. Later, I watched the footage. Vernon opened the door in striped pajama pants, confused and squinting into the sun. Roxanne hovered behind him, arms folded, mouth tight. "You have 14 days to vacate the premises," the officer said. "This action is final unless legally contested." Vernon didn't yell. He didn't slam the door. He just stood there, paper in hand, as if he'd opened the wrong letter from a fortune cookie. That same afternoon, Tamsin went live on Instagram. Tears, fake lashes, and all. "She's ruining everything," she sniffled. "I lost sponsorships. My fiancé's under review. We're being kicked out of the house we grew up in." She turned the camera toward an old photo on the wall, me and her as kids. But this time, the public didn't buy it. Someone in the comments dropped court documents. The deed, the forged digital signature Clyde submitted. Screenshots, receipts. It spread faster than her video did. By sunset, Clyde had been removed from the firm's new Miami project. Meanwhile, Devlin finalized everything. Ownership, fully confirmed mine. Co-ownership, never existed. All legal actions taken by Vernon. Null, fraudulent, punishable. The story hit a local paper. Daughter accused of betrayal revealed as victim in family property scandal. My inbox filled with messages. Old co-workers, former clients, people who'd once looked the other way. "We never doubted you. I'm sorry we didn't say anything sooner. You deserved better than that, family." But I wasn't after validation. I was after truth. And this, all of it, was finally real. That evening, I reviewed the security cam footage from the moving company I'd hired to watch the Boca house. Vernon threw a box across the garage. Roxanne slammed a photo album shut, then dumped it in a trash bag like it had insulted her. Me? I kept one thing from the wedding, a paper swan napkin. It had survived the wine spill, the speech, the slap. Now it sat neatly on my desk, folded, clean. That night, as I made tea, the mail slot clinked. An envelope. Inside, a pastel card. Baby shower invitation, Tamsin's name. At the bottom, scrawled in ink like it was afraid to exist. "I'm sorry. You deserved better. Tamsin." The morning after the baby shower card arrived, I drove down to Boca Raton one final time. The movers had cleared out days ago. The front gate hung open. the lawn overgrown, like even the house had stopped pretending. I unlocked the door. The silence inside was thick, not peaceful. No furniture, no framed photos. No smell of Sunday dinner or perfume clinging to hallway rugs. Just dust and stale air. I walked from room to room, checking off a mental list with every creak of the hardwood. Kitchen, empty, garage, cleared, bedrooms, bare. It was all mine again. Legally, technically, but emotionally, it felt like entering someone else's dream after they'd already woken up. In the kitchen, I found a note folded neatly on the counter. Typed, not handwritten. This was never your home anyway. I didn't flinch. Instead, I opened the dishwasher, not even sure why. Habit, maybe, or defiance. But inside, nestled between an old sponge and a warped cereal bowl, was a single shoebox. I pulled it out and opened it on the granite island. Inside, a napkin, one of those tacky swan folds from the wedding dinner, wine-stained at the edges. And underneath it, a photo. Me, age 12, holding a science fair ribbon, braces shining in the flash. Someone had written on the back, "You always ask too many questions." I didn't cry. Back at my condo, I placed both items on my desk. Not because they were sentimental, but because they were reminders. Evidence of survival, of clarity, of who I'd been long before this mess began. That afternoon, I called Devlin. "It's time," I told him. He didn't ask what I meant. We both knew. By end of day, he had initiated the sale of the Boca Raton house. No press release, no grand gesture, just a clean transaction, stripped of drama. Half the proceeds went straight into a fund for a shelter that supports women leaving abusive homes. The other half, mine, would go towards something new, something not tethered to shame. Later that evening, I lit a small candle in my living room. No scent, just flame, steady, quiet. I placed the wedding napkin in a glass frame beside it. On my laptop, I opened the baby shower invite again, scrolled, hovered over the RSVP, then closed the tab. Some things don't need a response. Just as I stood to clear my mug, my phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen in over a year. Bridget, old team lead. Her message was short. "I saw everything. If you're ready to come back, we'd be lucky to have you." The next morning, I woke to stillness. Not the suffocating kind, just a quiet I didn't need to brace for. No unread messages blinking red, no missed calls, no threats masquerading as concern. I made tea, sat by the window, let it go cold while I watched the street come alive. There was no big moment of epiphany, just a small, grounded realization. It was over. Later that day, I pulled out the old storage bin I hadn't touched since the first wave of chaos began. I sorted through it slowly. The baptism photos, birthday cards signed in bulk ink, school certificates. None of it felt like mine anymore. I tossed most of it, keeping only the science fair snapshot and the wedding napkin, now in a frame. They weren't about nostalgia. They were proof. I'd lived. I'd outlived. That afternoon, I texted Bridget back. "Yes, I'm ready, but this time I do it on my terms." I meant it. The legal fallout lingered, even if the drama didn't. Vernon hadn't faced criminal charges, but the deed forgery stuck to his name like rust. His volunteer board quietly replaced him. A few friends stopped answering their door. Tamsin gave birth. No follow-up to the card, no calls. But every now and then I'd see her username pop up, liking a photo of my dog, a sunset, a quote about strength. Never anything personal, but not silence either. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. Instead, I journaled that night, just one sentence. Some people break you, not out of hate, but because your strength reminds them of everything they gave up. I didn't hate them, not anymore. But I no longer needed their recognition either. That weekend, I walked by the beach again, the one near where I once imagined raising a family. I stood by the edge, toes in the sand, wind tangling my hair, and I smiled, not because the future looked exactly how I'd planned, but because it finally looked like mine. That evening, Juno invited me over for dinner. Her living room smelled like basil and something buttery. Two of her friends I hadn't met before were already there, wine glasses in hand. We talked about work, travel, politics, No one brought up family, no one needed to. Before dessert, Juno raised her glass. To Imelda, she said, eyes locking with mine, who sold the lie and bought back her life. The others clinked their glasses to mine, and for the first time in a very long while, I believed it. Sometimes the biggest betrayals don't come from strangers. They come wrapped in family photos, inside phone calls that start with, "I'm just worried about you," and end with a favor that sounds like a demand. I used to think love meant tolerating things quietly, being the bigger person. But silence isn't always strength. Sometimes it's surrender in disguise. What I've learned, painfully, is this. You are allowed to draw boundaries. You are allowed to say no, even to people who raised you. And you don't owe your peace of mind to those who profit from your silence. It's okay if your family isn't your safe place. It's okay if walking away is the healthiest thing you'll ever do. And if you're still in the middle of it, feeling like no one sees the truth, I hope this story reminds you, you are not alone. So let me ask you something. Have you ever had to choose peace over people who shared your last name? How did you know when enough was enough? I want to hear your story. Drop a 1 in the comments if this resonated with you. Or tell me where you're watching from. If this video didn't connect with you, I'd love to know why. What part didn't feel real? And hey, if you made it this far, maybe it's a sign. Hit that subscribe button so you won't miss the next story, because sometimes healing doesn't start with justice. It starts with being heard. Thanks for listening.